Explosive new revelations about the Uranium One scandal. A new report says an FBI informant warned the Justice Department about how Russia was scheming to gain control of the world's uranium supply, including ours. And yet, the Obama administration still approved this deal. Why did it? And why is this important now? Hi, everyone. I'm Trish Regan. Welcome to Cashin' In. Our Cashin' In crew this week, we have Rachel Campos-Duffy, Jerry Willis, Juan Williams, and Gary Kaltbaum. Welcome, everyone.
Hi.
Gary, I'm starting with you. What do you make of these new Uranium One revelations?
It just adds to the inconsistencies that we've been hearing about on this deal. And look, the left is going to defend this to the end of time. The right wants to put people in jail. For me, it's all about what they should be doing. That's following the money. $145 million into the coffers of the Clinton Foundation from players in this deal before, during, and after. Add in the fact that the Clintons did not disclose it, and what you have is simple definition of the potential of pay-to-play and influence peddling, and the fact there really is no big investigation is an absolute sin, because the one thing we do not want from government people is to make decisions on this country based on them lining their pockets.
I gotta say, it's really bizarre, Rachel, because you keep in mind the fact that, not only was the Clinton Foundation accepting all this money, but there was an FBI investigation going on at the time. That is what we have learned. 5,000 new pages have been revealed, information that the informant was providing the FBI. And so if you've got an investigation going on into Vladimir Putin, Russia, and their attempt to gain access to the world's uranium supply, including in the United States of America, why on earth do you approve the sale of a company that controls 20% of the United States' uranium?
It's mind-boggling. And I'll say this, it wasn't just that the informant was raising red flags. They were very prominent members of the U.S. House of Representatives, Representative King, Representative Ileana Ros-Lehtinen, both of them experts and seasoned in national security and foreign policy issues, raising red flags, writing letters, and yet this was approved. Remember, half a million for Bill Clinton's speech. That is 1/5 of what was paid by, and that was paid by a Russian-backed bank, a Kremlin-backed bank, and also it's 1/5 of what was paid for Facebook ads by the Russians that the Democrats claim altered this election. This is not incompetence, and by the way, that's what the Democrats are claiming.
Yes,
Can't be.
They try and say, well, she didn't know about
millions of dollars.
It never got to Hillary Clinton's desk. That's the excuse I keep hearing. To which I say, well, gosh, shouldn't have? I mean, shouldn't have gotten to someone's desk?
Of course it got to her desk. Listen, this had to be approved by Treasury, by State Department. Hillary Clinton was the most powerful member of that cabinet. She was going to be the next nominee and they thought president of the United States. Believe me, I've been on boards before. The most powerful member of the board has a lot of influence. She may not have herself stamped that, but believe me, everybody at the State Department knew that Hillary Clinton wanted this deal to go through.
Mm-hmm. I just question, Juan, why we suddenly befriended the Russians during the Barack Obama administration. During the Bush years, Condoleezza Rice, who was a Bush scholar, Secretary of State, she was wary of Putin. She was wary of Russia. We knew of Putin's territorial ambitions. It was the cover article back in 2006 or 2007 in the CFR Journal, Council on Foreign Relations. Yulia Tymoshenko from Ukraine wrote a whole piece about how Putin was a danger, both in Iran and other parts of Europe. We knew all this. And yet suddenly, Barack Obama's there, Hillary Clinton is Secretary of State, the Clinton Foundation gets $145 million from the Russians, and we're now willing to sell our uranium supply?
Well, I feel like I've stepped in here to interrupt your conspiracy theories run amok, but I'm delighted to do it. I mean, you talk about the Bush administration. I remember President Bush saying he looked into Putin's eyes, looked into his soul, and saw a good man. So I don't know. I mean, you guys are cherry picking. This is very thin gruel. It's not explosive revelations.
But
it's leading to excessive explosive stomach upset, because there is nothing to this story. This story has been debunked. This story originally appeared in a book by Peter Schweitzer many years ago. It was then investigated. In addition to which, you talk about the money. This is cashing
Why do you
in.
think it should
The
be
money came
debunked?
long before
Why do you
she
think
was
it's not
ever
relevant?
a candidate for anything, even Secretary of State. It was approved by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. In other words, several people had authority. She was one of many. It never was about her. There's no
it's
evidence
not about
of
her.
this.
I mean, isn't it about
No, you know what this is about,
the entire
Trish?
party in general, though?
No,
I mean,
Trish,
why
this
is
is
it that
about
9 people
this
would
is
sign
about
off on something like
Republicans
this?
trying to distract and derail the Russia investigation into Donald Trump.
I'll tell you, Juan, I have spent my career covering business. I have spent my career covering these transactions that are going cross-border.
Yeah.
It is not easy to get a deal through CFIUS. It's just not.
True.
A lot of deals get
There you
dropped.
go.
They got this one through, and they got it through at a record speed. And I just question, Gary, go ahead. I want to get Jerry in here too, but I question why this one went through so easily, and I also want to know why Bill Clinton was collecting $500 grand from the Russians
You
for a
should check
speech
on
right
the other
after that
presidents.
time.
Check on the other presidents,
because
Trish.
that's one where it's kind of
Trish,
like
this is not
Jerry,
out of line
you
with
might
what
say,
presidents
hey, hon,
get paid by
if you're Hillary
oligarchs.
Clinton, maybe you should pass on that speech.
Oh,
it
my
might
gosh.
look like a little bit of a conflict, just a little.
You know what this all reminds me of? All the controversy over Whitewater. Again and again and again with the Clintons, we get into these huge debates, huge controversies, and guess what? They just bury you in paper. And so you feel like you don't know what's really true. But guess what? Here's what we actually do now know is true. Uranium One trying to corner the market on uranium on the planet, on the globe. That's not what the U.S. government wants. That's a negative, and yet units of the government said A-OK to that. You know, now we've got this insider, this person who did all this work, taking a look at, and now he's saying a lot of the Justice Department statements are not true. And what he's saying is that there was a problem, yes, indeed. Look, pay to play, super hard to prove, right? Robert Menendez proves that. But I got to tell you, there's smoke and there's a whole lot of fire here.
Go ahead, Rich.
Let me turn this.
Gary.
I want to turn this on. Let me turn this on its head. If we wake up next week and we find out that the Trump Foundation got $145 million from a bunch of Russians, there would be about 5,000 investigators out there calling for their heads. The veins would be popping out of the heads of all these media people going nuts about this. Look, you know, Juan, you say there's no evidence here. The evidence is straight in your eyes. It is about the money exchanging hands. Why do all roads lead to the Clinton
Gary, cite
Foundation?
the
Hold on,
evidence, not general statements, not conspiracy.
here's
Give
the
me the evidence, Gary.
The Clintons
The
got
point is, Juan,
$145 million
okay,
during
hang on,
the
Rachel,
time
let's
this
let
deal was
Gary
going
respond.
In
on.
other words, there were contributions to a foundation long before Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State or running for office, and Gary says that's the evidence. Not guilty, Your Honor.
Juan, the point is this. Do you think it's a good idea, given all the concern that you've expressed many, many times about the Russians, do you think it's a good idea for them to have 20% of the U.S. uranium market? Do you think that's a good idea? Do you think that should have been approved by Hillary or by the
Let me just explain,
Obama administration?
Rachel, let me explain that, you know, I've looked into this, and what I got back was so interesting because the United States has an interest in controlling how Russia deals with uranium. So our side was interested in seeing that they had some access here. It comes down to now 2%.
Oh,
and remember, remember, none of it was
writing letters saying this
none
was
of it
bad
went
for
to
U.S.
Russia.
Hold it there. It was exported.
It didn't go to Russia. None of it was exported to Russia.
For a second, because
No,
I want
and
to
to Europe,
clarify
where we
the
don't know
record
where it
here.
went after
It
that.
was exported out of the United States of America. It went to Canada.
There
it went
you
to
go.
Asia. It went to Europe.
Oh, what a difference.
And you don't know where it goes. You want it going to Asia? You want it going to Europe? You want it going
2%?
to
Oh, my gosh,
all
this
of
is
these
terrible.
other entities,
You
and we
want-
don't know where it winds up. So why would you take that chance, Juan?
You would take that chance because it means that the United States is in a superior, dominant position with regard to fueling nuclear
Except that
weapons.
the informant,
Delusional.
Juan, except that the informant directly, the source that we have, the informant told the U.S. government that this was part of a plan by the Russians to corner this market, that they wanted to do that for their own national security reasons. There was a reason why these legislators in the House were raising flags, were writing letters, and it was ignored by the Obama administration and by
Look,
the Clintons.
I got to say, the thing that should have tipped everyone off initially, everyone on that CFIUS committee, is it was ARMZ ARMZ Uranium Holdings. If that doesn't, stop you, I don't know what does. And then on top of that, this company was owned by the Russian state atomic energy company, Rosatom. I mean, somebody should have been concerned there. They weren't, and I think it's very worthwhile to ask why.